Man, I made so much stuff to make this work, but there's some good goodies to show you and to give to you. So today I want to talk about A2A, new agent-to-agent protocol, and how to build with it, how to integrate with it. So I'll first give you a little overview of what's the difference between A2A and MCP, because probably been working with Model Context Protocol, and I was a little confused and not very satisfied with a bunch of the explanations I found on the internet, and I think I got a decent grasp of it with all the little things of what I think might happen or not. We'll get to that. And then I wanted to actually use it. So I built this. I have a chat app that I've been working on for a while, but so this is Pedals. It's not open source yet. Maybe I'll do it. I still have to decide. I'm not sure. The whole thing is there's an assistant. Now the assistant is just empty because I would just want to show you the technical stuff. But the whole idea is you talk to an assistant that has some personality and it has some skills, so tools, and also memory. So the idea is it remembers everything that you know. And I know ChatGPT has that feature since like 2 days ago, but I don't want ChatGPT to have like the most important data of my life. I want to keep that in control. So for sure the memory part is it's a separate service. For sure the memory part is gonna get open sourced. But anyways, this is, I'm basically asking, hey, can you please do research on A2A versus MCP? And so now it'll reply like, hey, what's up? And you see here, research has started, searching for 4 queries. And so what it's doing here, it is using the A2A protocol. It's launching a task to the A2A agent, which is doing actually deep research based on the OpenDeepResearcher that we have. Just wrap that into an A2A, well, just wrap that into an A2A server. We'll get to that. And so this is doing, it'll take a couple of minutes. But when it gets back, I'll show you what the output is. But well, it works. It works. So okay, let's track back. Let's talk about A2A, MCP. How do they make sense, like together or not, or what is that? And then I'll show you how I've built this A2A server and client, because the code right now is there's not that much out there. I published a little npm package to help you set that up, and I have this deep research agent that you can just get from my GitHub if you want to use it as well, if you want to have an example of how to work with all it. So I've kind of worked with them. This is definitely not a complete client, but it does the stuff of you send it a task and it does the thing and then it comes back with the result. So that definitely works. So I wanted to this chat thing to be powerful and also have multiple different, a bunch of different tools. So it had MCP already, and I was like, well, how do I add this A2A? Do I need to replace one with the other? I don't know. So it took me a while to figure this out, but I've got it. So let me share where I am right now. So let's go here. We have our little human. This is our human, right? And so our human is on their computer. And you have a nice little computer, right? And they're talking with their AI. And so here we have an LLM going on, right? And what's happening is that this LLM, we basically, well, we need to translate everything. I mean, if you've been working with it, one of the first videos I made was like, oh my god, they made function calling built in instead of us having to like mess around and try to do it by hand. So this is function calling. Now it's tool calling, right? So we as a developer, we give the LLM tools, and then there's the interaction, right? That's all happening inside of that app. Okay. That's just what's going on. I know you know that, but I do want to just reiterate it because we're going to come back to it. And so, okay, nice. But now we have MCP, and MCP is this protocol where the chat client, right, will interact with MCP, and we'll just talk about tools for now. I know MCP has a little more. We'll mostly talk about tools. So MCP has a discovery mechanism where this chat app, it can figure out, okay, what tools are available, what arguments do they need, right? And there's a standard way for calling on them and using them. Okay, that's cool. So internally, when you're doing this, you need to translate these MCP functions that are available into tools that you're passing into the LLM, right? Okay, nice. And now we have A2A, right? Wait, what's going on here? First of all, what is an agent? Well, the thing here is an agent has their own LLM. And so that's one of the things that All right, now of course you can build an MCP server that does this agent task, right? You can build an MCP server where the tool is using their own doing this deep research. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. And I think actually this is the reason why Google is going so hard on A2A loves MCP, because MCP is becoming so popular. And Anthropic is not one of the like 30 partners that Google announced together with their A2A, because like I think in MCP you don't have to change that much to kind of gobble up all the A2A features. And A2A has a bunch of things that MCP doesn't have, but it does fit in pretty well. And I actually think you can even build a server that both supports MCP and A2A, because they're both JSON RPC, and they both have very similar kind of structures of their messaging. They're both SSE, server-side events. So I'm digressing a little bit, but back to A2A LLMs. This is actually what made it make sense for me, what the difference is between calling a tool and using an agent. Because I was like, well, you know, my chat, it can call tools. It can search. I just add the web search tool. I just add the read a web page tool, and then it can do the research. That's fine. But the context window, that's the thing that made it make sense for me. If I let my assistant that I'm talking to do the research itself, then it literally has the content of all of these websites that it's reading in the context window. And so if I'm continuing the conversation, then it will get just distracted by all of that stuff. And you're also, of course, paying for those tokens for every single message. And so that is where I'm like, but then an agent makes sense, because it encapsulates the question. It gets rid of the context. So it doesn't know my background, and it doesn't have the memory like the chat has. But it can do the research, it can read all those pages, and it can throw away all the data that it's not using, and then it just sends back this report, which does stay in the context of the chat that I have with my assistant. And that makes it a lot smoother. You'll get better results, and you'll pay less for that. So in that sense, I'm like, okay, that makes sense. That's a good use case for why we would want to have agents. I see in the meantime that it came back. So let me go back here. So that's a comprehensive report. Well, yes, of course. I didn't format this nicely, but it just throws up the markdown results. So you see that it's going through, and I think this is pretty decent actually. So and it's summarizing it for me: Agent2Agent, MCP, external tools. Okay, cool. So that works. And now the only thing that's in the context is the result of this tool call. So I can continue talking. This AI agent is not the assistant is not distracted by the content of these like 60 or 90 websites that it read out. So I think that's really cool. Okay, let's go back here. Okay, A2A, MCP, whatever. Because here, when you look at this, you can do many things. You can have your chat app implement an A2A client. This is what I've done here. So it's directly communicating with the A2A server over the A2A protocol. But you might as well build an MCP server that translates A2A agents into MCP tools. Why not? You know, actually an A2A agent, the task that it exposes, the data structure, it's just a text query. So an MCP tool can have a complex set of, you need to give it a number and then an object and then an array of things. A2A is just a text. It's just a piece of text. It's a single argument, the query. So that would actually work, honestly. Or what you can also do is, let's say my chat app has an A2A interface. And then this A2A agent might connect to one or more MCP servers because this agent needs tools to do its work. And then if you read the A2A specs and they're like, oh, A2A, MCP, we love each other, we recommend that you show off your A2A agent acts like this as a resource. right? So a resource is a thing in MCP where, so they recommend that you expose A2A agents as an MCP resource. And I was like, well, this is confusing. How does that even work? But the way I understand it is that a resource, that is something that you see on the screen. So basically what they're telling you is you should show the A2A agents on the screen. That's basically what they're saying. Like, you can use MCP to do it. Okay, well, fine. Sure. I don't need a new pen. Thank you. Yes. Okay, so, okay, maybe I made you more confused now. I hope like I didn't get you too confused. I hope I give you some understanding. But so what I did in this chat app is I have an MCP client and I have an A2A client, and they're both tool sources, right? They both create LLM tools. So they all kind of end up being translated to the tools. And then when the LLM requests a tool call, it's going to figure out, oh, that was from this MCP server from the list that I have, or that was from this A2A server from that list that I have. And I'll dispatch it there, and then it'll come back with it. Okay. Why did I do it this way instead of the other way that I was showing you, where you could have an MCP proxy that just calls A2A agents? That would perfectly work. Well, the thing is, A2A still has a bunch of very interesting features that, again, I'm quite probable that MCP would implement them. So what A2A has, so basically how it works is you send a task to it, right? And then it sends you progress. I'm sorry you cannot read it, but you're hearing it, so that's fine. It sends progress. It can send artifacts. That's a new thing. So progress, artifacts. Well, those are kind of the two main things. And there's many different ways of doing this task and getting the response. So you can send a task, you could poll for it, or you could send a task and stream the results. So in my case, I'm just streaming it, and I'm streaming it back to the client. So you see it when it's, oh, I'm now doing 4 search queries, now I'm reading 30 web pages, etc. And that's are the progress notifications. MCP has a similar thing. It has but a very simple progress, just a number. It just sends you a number, basically. There is a message in this spec, but it's not implemented in the TypeScript SDK yet. Maybe I'll contribute that. I've been adding stuff to the TypeScript server. Anyways, and then but the A2A has artifacts. So this thing, a report, that would be an artifact. And why it's interesting to show it as something different from just a text response is that I don't do this yet, but in the UI, you could show this as like literally an artifact, a little card that shows you a downloadable file. And there's a MIME type associated in A2A. So this can be a markdown file, a text file, an image, etc., etc. So those are all things that are very interesting that we have in A2A. And of course, A2A is Agent2Agent. Well, I don't think that's very special. You can have an MCP server that talks to other MCP servers. Nothing stopping you from doing that, but that's the intention at least. And you could see this chat assistant that is over here. You could think of that as being an agent as well. So in that sense, it's already doing Agent2Agent. All right. I hope I made sense of that for you. I hope that's a little clear. That's at least how I'm thinking about this for now. And now let me show you a little bit more about what I did to build this, because if you look at, I didn't plan this, but let's go for it. If you look at the A2A, the other one, there we go. If you look at the A2A, no, that's mine. That's secret. I'm about to show you this. Ah, damn it. I don't use this browser, so it's not it's not in the autocomplete. Okay, so if you look here, this is so new. So if I look, for example, at, or there's a specification, right? There's a JSON, and this is just like, oh, there we go. This is, I should use it. That's confusing. Okay, well, I've got a bit of an answer for that for you. And then you can look at the samples. I don't really like Python all that much, so I'm always looking at the TypeScript stuff. They have a schema here, so they have the schema in a TypeScript definition. I don't like that it's just TypeScript interfaces, because if you're doing client-server communication, you're talking with external services, you want to verify that. So you don't want a TypeScript schema, you want a Zod schema or any of the other ones. And I'm actually working on that, and I will publish that if they're not there before me because I'm just doing this in my free time. So let's look at this server. So they have a little server, and then I'm like, Express, really, guys? It's 2025 for sure. Come on, you can do better than this. So, because I wanted to build an MCP server, A2A server, and I wanted to have an A2A client. So they have example code for this, and it's all like, there's so much code, it's all super messy. And honestly, the thing I made, because it was just yesterday on Sunday, I wanted to get this done. I just got Gemini 2.5 to translate a lot of this stuff, and then I just fixed the bugs that were left in there. But now I do have is it here? No, DeepResearcher agent is the other one. We have the A2A server. And this is an A2A server that's using Hono, so it's not actually super slow like Express. So, okay, how do you use it? It's the same way if you're seeing the A2A example server, it's just the same thing, it's translated. So basically, you define an async generator function, which I really like this interface. I like this a lot more. Like, this is so built from the ground up to be long running and streaming and progress, which is different than MCP, right? MCP is just an await, just a promise. An asynchronous function, and then you can send progress, but I like the way that this is so core to it. So you would just yield different events. When you say yield with the state working, that means that it's a progress event, and then you can add an additional message or messages, so it's like a multi-part message. So in this case, it's just simple text, right? And this would be sent back to the client. And when you look back at my app, well, it was showing up here on the right side. So those progress messages. Then you do your work. You can check if it's canceled if you need to. Then this is the other one. You yield an artifact. I actually think MIME type is wrong here. I don't remember. But you would yield something with a name. So that's interesting, right? So this is a file name basically, and it has a file type. And then again, it has parts. So in this case, again, it's a text part, but it can be something like an image part or binary, anything that you want. And then at the end, we have again a state yield, which says completed. Okay. Then the other thing we have in A2A is the agent card, of course. The agent card is an endpoint. Actually, wait, let me check what the endpoint is of my A2A agent, because it's like 42 something 41241. So well-known agent.json. And this gives you a JSON file that just describes the agent. So this is a key part of A2A, is the discovery, that you can just fill in a website that has an agent, and then it'll figure out what to do with it. Now this skills thing, don't confuse this with the tools in MCP. It's not the same. An agent just takes a query. Whether you have 1 skill or 100 skills, it just takes a query. It's just a way of describing what it can do. What I've done internally in my chat app is I have translated these skills into tools. But if one A2A agent has 5 different skills, then they will show up as 5 different tools to the LLM, but they will all end up at the same agent. So that's how I get the LLM to understand what it can do. There's maybe a better way, I don't know. So when you have this A2A server, what it does is it hosts that agent card, and then it accepts the requests to do tasks, and it'll execute them. So if you see here, A2A server, my agent logic, that's that generator function. And then we can have a couple options, which contains the card information, etc. And then there's this task store, which helps you with, like, it stores stuff when it's paused or when it's interrupted, so it can pick the work back up later. Or if you have a stateful MCP server where you can have conversations and kind of go back and forth, that is supported by the task store as well. So again, that's something that MCP, you could of course build it, but it doesn't have it natively. I forgot one more thing. Like, there's a couple more types of events here. So these are very simple state and artifacts. These are the key ones. But there's also things like, oh, we got interrupted for some reason, of course. But there's also things like we need input. We need input from the user. So I think that's a very interesting thing that, again, MCP might add, but where the agent is doing its work for 5 minutes and then it's sending a message back and say, well, I need some more information. And I do think it's a great way to great thing to have that as part of the protocol, because the agents will need that. If we need to make them do longer and longer things, they'll need to have a way to ask for stuff. So that's all in A2A. This is a Hono server. You can just get the npm package and run this for you. And then I've implemented this in this deep research agent. I'll link this below, of course. Deep research agents, basically, there's no readme yet. What this does is I took the OpenDeepResearcher, I got Gemini 2.5 to translate it to TypeScript, and then there is the A2A server. What this does is, I mean, it's just implementing what I just showed you. Deep research agent, it's an async generator of updates or tasks. Well, it takes a task. So it updates, okay, I'm working, and in the function, it just returns a whole bunch of things. Okay, I'm doing this, now I'm doing this. And at the end, it returns the report, basically. So that's an implementation, and that is something you can run it. You can send your A2A task to it, and it'll execute the research, and it'll send you back the response. So if you need an example, something that is, you can use this. Now, in this A2A agent, server, I have implemented a little bit better TypeScript types. So if you want to have that, I have A2A. This is their sample code, and then just fixed a little bit. Okay, so sorry, this is still the interface. Okay, I have the types a little better in the schema in the client app. So what I'll do is take this part out and put it in like a little A2A SDK package, or I mean, it should be in the upstream A2A, but they need to split up their package, their repository, I guess, into packages so people can actually consume it. So, well, I think that's where I am right now. And I hope made sense to you. I hope you have some inspiration. I hope it's a little bit clear how you can use these things, because I know for me at the beginning, it was very vague. And as I was telling you at the beginning, I had to make all this stuff. I'm like, I just want to have an agent. And so I needed to build a freaking A2A server package, get to deep research, because there's nothing out there yet. So I'm happy to contribute these things. Have a look at them. Let me know if you have any more questions or ideas for things to talk about or do in the future. And well, thank you for watching till the end. I was not always the smoothest talker today, but hey, that's how things go. Thank you, and I'll see you later.